I love doing user experience work. I love mentoring other people and doing it, but I'm also very aware that it can be really challenging to do. And not just the fact that it's challenging to design an optimal user experience, but also that there are often obstacles to doing it. And I want to take a few minutes and talk about what some of the obstacles are, because if you're doing user experience work, I know that you're going to either have faced or you're going to face some of these obstacles. So the first one is that what happens when you're working in a situation and the rest of the team doesn't know or understand what user experience is all about, or maybe they do understand, but they just don't think it's necessary or important, or that there's enough time and resources. So what do you do if you're working in a team and the team just doesn't get it? As I said, doesn't get it in terms of what it is or why it's important. This happens not as frequently now as it used to in the past. I mean, user experience is becoming a lot more common, and more teams and people are doing it, and there's a lot more talk about it. So it may not happen as much as it did years ago, but you're still going to run into it. And even if people understand what it is, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily committed to spending the time and doing some of the principles and the process that we've talked about before. So if this is true for you, there's two things you can do. I mean, you've got to educate and educate and educate over and over and over again. Even if you're able to talk about what UX is with the team that you're working on now, 3 months from now, you're going to be working with a different team, and not everybody on that team knows either. So I think you just got to get used to the idea that part of your job as a user experience person is to be constantly educating people on what the heck that even means to be a user experience person, and what user experience is all about, and what are the principles and what are the processes. I do suggest that you don't just talk about this on your own, but that you get help from the outside. And so maybe that means that you have some books available for people to read about user experience. There's some really, really great books out there. So get some good books about user experience and share those with the team. Maybe it means you bring in an outside speaker. I always tell people that I'm working with, I know it's frustrating because you've been talking about all of this insight to your teams for years, and then they don't get it, and then I come in from the outside and I give an hour talk, and all of a sudden everyone's excited. But that's what happens. So people need to understand that you're not just making this up. This isn't just your ideas, but that there's actually a whole industry around this. So that's obstacle number one, if your team doesn't get or understand or appreciate what you do. Number two obstacle is if you are a UX team of one, and a lot of people are in this situation. They're the only person on the project, certainly, and maybe the only person in the whole organization that does UX, and they have to do it all. And so they feel like they either don't have enough time, or maybe they're missing some of these skill set pieces that we talked about, and so they'd like to do more, but they just can't for whatever reason, either because of skill set knowledge or just time and energy. They can't do everything. And so the answer is, you're right, you can't do everything. And you need to let go of the idea that you can. So then it's really triage. It's really important that you be able to prioritize. What is the most important thing that you can do either on this project or inside the organization? What's the thing that you can work on now that's going to have the largest impact? And you're not going to be able to do all the work. You're not going to be able to do everything you might want for that project or all the projects. You have to prioritize, and just know that by prioritizing and working on the things that have the most impact, that will help your case, and then maybe at some point you won't have to be a UX team of one, but you can actually have other people join in with you. Third obstacle is if there isn't support for the idea of user experience, what I call up the food chain, right? If you don't have high-level support for what you're doing, you're going to always run into all of these other obstacles, and you're going to always be hitting brick walls. So you have to, at some point, go find a person who is high up in the food chain, someone high up in the organization who has a lot of power and is networked in with the powerful people in your organization, You have to find someone who's going to be an advocate for you. Now, they don't have to be a user experience professional. They may not even totally get what you do, but they get it enough to know that they support it and they think it's a really important idea. And you need that. You need someone who's championing your cause, who can clear the way for you, and that's very important. So look for a high-level executive. How do you find someone? Well, talk about what you do, give a lot of presentations. At some point, somebody in the company is going to hear about it, going to be interested in it, and they'll grab it and run with it. I have seen this many, many times. So don't give up, but always be looking for the next level up person who understands what you do and will support you. There's 3 obstacles then to designing great user experiences, and you may have more that you've run up against. These are the 3 that I have seen happen over and over. Just be aware of them and be as proactive as possible to make sure those obstacles don't thwart you in the great work that you're trying to do.